So the reality is that we're living in a time where there's a lot of battling going on between men and women, unfortunately. And the internet doesn't help. It makes matters worse by pushing certain narratives on both sides that create a lot of tension and division. And I believe what's happening now is causing a lot of women to be very cautious when it comes to men, and shoot, some women not even wanting to date at all is making men be cautious. But the reality is that at the end of the day, the vast majority of people still desire a relationship. And we got to figure out how we can come together in a healthy way. So one of those things that will help you, if you're all for that, hopefully you are, right, is understanding the mindsets that a woman can have that will cause a man to respond more positively to you, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of them. At the end, there's one important one that could elicit both a positive or a negative response. But it's important for you to know what it is. So make sure you watch the end of the video. But let me break down some of these things that can cause a man to respond differently to you. And one of those mindsets is understanding that men have feelings too, okay? I only laugh because I just think about the tons of women over my years of doing this that when I say men have feelings, genuinely act shocked, genuinely give me resistance, and like, no, that's not true. That they don't care about anything, nothing bothers them, they don't feel anything, and it's like, no, they really do. Men have feelings too, and more specifically or especially when entertaining or dealing with a woman they actually genuinely like. So understand this, the more a man likes you, the more sensitive he can be with you, okay? Now, I know sometimes that can be good and bad, but it's a reality. And so for you as a woman, if you have fallen into the trap of believing men don't have feelings, understand that this is going to backfire on you in tons of ways. Because if you don't think men have feelings, then you will be insensitive to his feelings. You will not consider how things will impact his feelings. And I know some men make it difficult because they're not expressive about their feelings, okay? They're not communicating properly in a way that would make it easier for you to navigate. However, you still have to be mindful that feelings do exist. Now, if they say to you, these things don't bother me, okay, cool. But you've got to be willing to hear it out and not dismiss it, because for a lot of women get fixated on how a man feels about her rather than how a man feels in general about life, about different things, about different actions, you know, how he wants to be poured into, all these other layers to it that need to be considered, okay? And again, I've seen many situations where women will do things that hurt that man, that, you know, make him feel devalued, whatever the case may be. And then when he does express something about it, her response is like, oh, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, or I only did that because, and it's like, it's a deflection, it's not an acknowledgement of how he feels, and it's not a willingness to make correction on top of that. And I think for some women, they struggle too because pride may get in the way. For some, it's hard to look at themselves in the mirror and say, damn, okay, maybe I did mishandle that or drop the ball there, right? But it's like, if you want to build a healthy relationship, you've got to be willing to embrace that. Now, again, I understand for some of you, you'll say, well, it's the man who's doing that. He's not taking my feelings into consideration. Granted, that happens, but then don't deal with that man. Like the result of this should not be now you acting in the same way, okay? Or you projecting that onto other men. So this video being about the mindsets that men respond differently to, what a lot of women don't realize is when you have the mindset of men don't have feelings, there's a certain energy, there's a certain spirit that comes off of you, okay? And it's going to be a little repelling if we're just being real, okay? It's just being real. And listen, that would be the case if you had that mindset with any group of people. If you thought other women don't have feelings, it's going to come across you, come out of you in certain ways. If you thought older people, you know, adults, whatever, kids, whoever, it's going to come out of you in ways that you may not fully realize, okay? So you got to make sure that you embrace the fact that, yes, men can be downright fragile, okay? And again, especially with certain women. So let me also say this, because you may see a man not react or not care when a woman does something, but you don't realize he doesn't care that she did it, right? That doesn't mean he'll be okay with you doing it or you not doing it. It's different. And I think if you think about yourself, the same thing happens to a certain extent. Like, if you don't really care about a guy, if you're not really into a guy, his actions or lack of may not affect you the same or will not affect you the same as the guy who you're actually more invested into, okay? So all that to say, yes, you got to remember men have feelings. Be mindful of that. Be willing to talk to that man and understand what are the things that are important to him and that affect him emotionally. And that's going to be very beneficial for any potential relationship or even the ability to attract better men. All right, so another huge mindset that men respond to, a mindset a woman can have that men will respond differently to or more positively to, is a woman who understands it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, all right? So this is kind of an extension of men having feelings too, because in the situations where women think that way, they are less mindful of the way that they speak to a man. And some of y'all out there can have very sharp tongues, all right? And the things you say can cut very deep, right? And you may not understand or realize how much of a problem that is. And let me also say this, you know, for various reasons, you can have a man be with a woman who speaks to him in a way that he doesn't like, and he still stays with her. And even though it's deteriorating the relationship or even hurting the potential of a serious relationship. So it can be in various phases where, let's say you guys are just dating, he may let it slide in some cases because, well, his goal is to sleep with you anyway, so he's just gonna fight through all of that negativity to get what he wants. If he's in a relationship with you, he may be very attached, very obsessed, infatuated, and because of that, letting a lot of disrespectful things slide. None of that makes it okay. And of course, if I was speaking to the man, I would tell him, like, you got to let her know what's going on and you can't just allow this to continue. But the bottom line is, don't just think that you can speak any kind of way to a man, and because he doesn't walk away from you, that means it's okay, all right? You've got to be willing to discuss things. But again, I don't want a woman to feel like she can't express herself, she can't open up to her man, because that's what's necessary for any successful relationship. But you got to understand how you're coming across when you talk to somebody, okay? And I think what's great for a woman to do is take inventory by asking just even other women or family members in your life, like, how do I come across when I talk to you? Do I come across harsh? Am I a little negative? Now, here's the thing. Don't go ask another negative person if you come across negative, because if they're negative too, they're going to be like, nah, you're fine. Ain't nothing wrong with the way you talk, right? They're going to say, oh, these men are just weak, okay? And it's like, no. Talk to someone that you can say, you know what, this person is good at communicating, or at the very least, knows how to take a more calm, loving, positive tone. Let me ask them what they think, okay? Now, granted, there are scenarios where sometimes you may be able to take a more positive approach with most people, and the negativity seems to only come out with the men, right? And now you may hit back and say, well, Stefan is coming out with the men because they're doing some foolishness, right? He's pissing me off. He's pushing me to that point. And again, I will say to you, listen, if you are dealing with a man, dating, relationship, whatever, that always pushes you to a negative place, then the question becomes, why are you still with that man? One of the things we have to ask ourselves is, can we show up and be the best version, or at least strive to be that best version of us when dealing with this person? if this person brings out the bad in you, we got a problem here. And if we can't correct this issue, we got to walk away. They should be bringing out the good in you. They should be able to make it easier for you to talk calmly and positive and loving and all these things. So address it, but again, don't use it as a scapegoat to continue in that behavior. So understanding, and let me add a little bit more to this real quick. So it's not just what you say, but how you say it. Absolutely. It's also when you say it. Okay? One of the things that a man is going to respond very positively to is a woman who understands time and place. Okay? So it's like, one example is you'll have some couples where the woman will go off on him in public in front of other people. And it's like, yo, and he may not retaliate in public because he's not trying to escalate the situation, but that right there is going to put a very negative cloud, a very dark cloud over the relationship. It's going to have a very negative impact. So it's understanding like, okay, listen, it doesn't mean you cannot give a man correction. It doesn't mean, again, you can't let him know how you feel, but you got to be mindful that, okay, this ain't the time. And let's not do it to where he gets embarrassed in front of a crowd of people. Let's wait behind closed doors. Some situations may require in that moment something has to be said. But again, it's how you go about it. Pull the person to the side. Say it quietly. Don't make a scene. And again, this is just one example. But yes, time and place is also very important if you're going to have positive and healthy communication with a man. All right, so another mindset that a woman can have that men respond differently to or more positively to is one that doesn't view men as all bad, okay? So let me put it in this context. There are situations that can occur in the news, on social media, whatever the case may be. And you have some women who their mind always goes to the man is the villain. The man is wrong. It's all the man's fault. Never considers the other side of things, right? Always assumes that even if the woman acted inappropriately, did something bad, it's like, well, what did he do to her? It's never in her mind that the woman could possibly be just a bad woman on her own. It's like, no. This man pushed her button. This man did something, whatever the case may be. And that plays into one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later in the video. But when you are that kind of woman, again, it goes back to what I said earlier, to where if you don't think men have feelings, that starts to come out of you in a lot of different ways. And when you think all men are bad, right, and all men are at the root of every issue, then yes, that's going to start coming out of you in ways as well. You're going to have a negative energy towards men, even the men that you decide you want to be with, without you realizing it. Now, of course, there's levels to it. It may not come out as strong as some others. Depends on what's the root of your perception, okay? So meaning, if you are a woman and all your life, every man has let you down, every man has betrayed you, every man has hurt you. So that experience and not healing from it, yes, that's a very powerful negative foundation on how you will now perceive men. Some women won't deal with men at all after going through all that. Some will still deal with them, but again, view them in a very negative light. That's different than maybe you haven't had to deal with these personal bad experiences, or let's say you've had a good man let's say your father was good to you, but you always hear your girls talking about all these men being bad to them, right? All right, that chances are, if that's the case, you probably automatically aren't going to look at all men as bad anyway, because you have an example of someone good to refer back to. But either way, it's like you got to be very mindful of how you look at things, and you've got to be able to view life through a more objective lens, a more fair and balanced lens, which is going to be extremely beneficial for you when in a relationship. Now, let me say this. One of the reasons why a man is going to be so positive towards a woman that doesn't view all men as bad is because he now knows, okay, she's not going to always make everything all about him, right? It's not going to be all put on his feet as to everything that's going wrong in any situation. And so that is welcomed by a lot of men, because unfortunately there's a lot of women who just want to blame men for everything, okay? And so, not to let this drag on much longer, I'll just say this. If you know that your perception of men is rooted on your past experiences, and chances are it is, right? You got to make sure you heal. Because trying to convince you to not look at men as all bad when all you've experienced is bad from men, it's like, it's not going to work. You might be able to get out of that mindset for a little bit, but you're going to fall right back the minute somebody does you wrong again, or anything that even remotely looks wrong. The only way to conquer that kind of mindset is healing. And really, the majority, if not all these mindsets that we're going to be discussing, the negative sides of them, will need to be conquered through going through the healing process, all right? Now, if you need help with the healing process, check out my book, Love After Heartbreak. It's going to break down for you the very specific steps to heal. It has helped thousands of people, okay? It's a heavy exercise, but it's well worth it, and it's going to get you to where you need to be. And it's not just healing for the purpose of men and not viewing men bad. It's healing for the purpose of your peace, of your happiness, of your overall quality of life. So click the link in the description or in the comment section, or go to loveafterheartbreak.com. All right, so let's keep this going. And so another mindset that men respond differently to is a woman who can take accountability. All right, so I've pretty much been alluding to it this whole video, right? And so let's just get to it. The bottom line is men believe women are allergic to accountability. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, no, that's these men. I get it, right? But I'm just telling you how a lot of men view it. They view it as women, don't take accountability. And so a woman who can is like the light coming from the heavens shining on her. They're like, oh my gosh, okay, she's different. Like this is special here. Now, again, I know that some of you may feel like, nah, that like it's common, and it's like maybe not the way you think at the very least, okay? And so we're not gonna, again, dwell on this too long, but the bottom line is you've got to be able to always look at what could I have done better in a situation, okay? Because listen, even when someone does something wrong to us, in many cases, there's something that we can look at and say, you know what? I could have did this differently. This would have been a better way for me to handle it. This would have been a better way for me to approach it. Now, if you can honestly say to yourself, no, I followed every possible best step I could here, and this was still the result that I got, right? And they still did what they did. Okay, so be it. But you've got to be willing to consider the role that you play. And it can't be a retaliation of like, well, I only did this because you did that. Like trying to validate your negative action because of theirs. That's not good. Because again, it shows like an unwillingness to take accountability, an unwillingness to then grow. And then how can someone trust that you won't do it again? You know, just think about how it feels for you as a woman when dealing with a man who can't just acknowledge when he mishandled things, when he was wrong, when he could have done things better, so on and so forth, okay? And I'm going to say this, understand that, because I know there's a lot of women who the reason why they struggle to take accountability is because they internalize that mistake in a way that they start to feel like, well, then maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe he won't want me, or, you know, there's something wrong with me. And it's like, no, don't internalize the mistake. Just learn from it. You're human. We all make them, all right? You live long enough in this life, you're going to make some mistakes. And it's just being willing to learn and grow and do better. And understand that, yes, it may not have been, you may not view it as a bad action or mistake in general, right? Because maybe when you do this with other people, it's never been a problem before. But now it's a problem for him. And it's like, just be open to that and be willing to understand that he's different. So we respect it, we make corrections, we move forward. All right, so another mindset that men respond differently or more positively to, from a woman, is the woman who wants to look good for her man. All right, so listen. I know we live in a world where women are always being told, you don't look good for no one else, you look good for you, which I don't necessarily disagree with, right, in a general sense, and I think it's always good to focus on, or it's necessary to focus on, you making sure you like what you see in the mirror, you feeling good about yourself, you being happy in whatever style or presentation that is, right? That is the foundation, that's the baseline. However, I do think it's a mistake for many people, and I would say this to a man or a woman, to think that you should not be considering your partner and looking good for them when entering into a relationship or when in a relationship, right? And I believe this is especially true when it comes to dealing with men, because men tend to be more visual than women. Again, tend to be. There are some women who are just as visual, if not more visual than a man, right? There's some men who don't care as much, but in general, they tend to be more visual than the woman. And there's a lot of men, I speak to a lot of men who are married, right? And one of the complaints I've heard many times is like the wife no longer caring how she looks for him. Not wanting to look nice around the house, right? Now, I know for some of them it's like, why I gotta worry about all that? I'm home, I gotta deal with work, kids, whatever. I get it, but it's like, again, a lot of men still want that visual stimulation. And so for that woman to not even care, it also goes back to the whole men having feelings, in the sense that we have to understand when people, and more specifically, when the person that we're with or trying to be with devalues, dismisses, or does not care about something that we value and that we care about, that makes the person feel less desired and loved, right? And so it goes beyond just that specific issue. It's almost like, well, why can't that person do that for me? If they care about me, they love me, why can't that be important to them? Because it's important to me, right? And again, the same thing happens on the flip side. I'm pretty sure many of you as women have had situations where there was something that was important to you that he may have felt like should not be that big of a deal, should not be that important, and his unwillingness to embrace it made you feel some kind of way, made you feel dismissed and devalued. And so it's the same principle. It's the same principle. And I think the trap that a lot of women fall into is that they'll want to stand on the hill of fighting that, well, no, my presentation should not matter, especially once in the relationship or once married, because he should just love you. And it's like, listen, love and attraction, two separate things, right? And men still want and value, again, as well as many other women, attraction in their relationship. That's an important recipe or ingredient to successful, happy relationships, whether people want to accept it or not, right? And when the attraction goes, a lot of things start to fall apart in that relationship. So when a man can meet a woman who actually respects, honors, and cares about how he views her and his attraction to her and wanting to keep that up for him, that is going to elicit a very positive response from a man, as well as, I have to say, it would make it easier for a man to embrace marriage with that woman if they're not married yet. Because, for a lot of men, unfortunately, the perception is that everything goes downhill after the marriage, right? Like the sexual relations start to fall off, the attraction starts to fall off, looking good for you starts to fall off. You'll even see these situations where I've seen on social media where it's like they'll show a woman and the story is she got divorced, and let's say while she was married, she had put on a lot of weight, she gets divorced and she loses, let's say 100 100 pounds, right? And I personally know stories like that. So anyways, they're like, look what he missing and all this type of stuff. And you'll see a bunch of men in the comments like, well, why couldn't she do that when she was still married to him? Like, why is it now that they divorced, now you want to show the effort and into how you look, and now you want to make him feel like, look what he lost out on, but you could have done that while you were married, and that could have made a difference, right? That's how men are commenting on there. So all that to say, yes, it's important to a lot of men. It definitely is something that a lot will pay attention to, and a woman exhibits that mindset that shows she cares and honors that, that's going to, again, draw a lot of men closer to her. All right, so a couple more left. And another mindset that men respond very differently to, and in a positive manner, is the woman who can accept brutal honesty, okay? So I'm not using the word brutal to say that you're willing to let a man just be mean and disrespectful to you in the name of him keeping it real, right? No. But I am using the word brutal in the sense that a lot of times what is true and what is true and what is real may hurt, may be a tough pill to swallow, right? May be difficult to process. And what I've seen is, some of you may disagree, but a lot of men just feel like women can't handle honesty. They can handle honesty that they like, right? If the honesty is what they want to hear or what they already believe and things of that nature, okay, cool. But if it's something that they're not going to want to hear, then it's like, well, how could you say that? Why would you say something like that? And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Do you want me to be real with you or no? And so a woman who can show a man that her mindset is, you know what? I may not like it, but I appreciate being able to hear it. I respect the fact that he can keep it real with me, right? And doesn't have to necessarily sugarcoat. And again, I'm not saying not sugarcoat in the sense of he still has to be mindful that it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? He still needs to be careful and deliver his words carefully. But again, some things are just going to be tough to swallow. Plain and simple, right? No matter how much we sugarcoat it, it's just not going to be easy to hear. Plain and simple. So, as a woman, part of what's going to help you become that woman who can hear that quote-unquote brutal honesty is, one, learning not to internalize things that are said, right? And understand that, okay, better to know what the truth is, and then we work from there. If it's something that we can work with, it's something that can be corrected, if it brings a level of clarity that now allows us to make a better situation, versus creating an environment where we're not able to keep it real and now things don't get solved. And I want to give this quick example, even though it's on the flip side of things, but it can work both ways. So one of the ways that I feel women are not brutally honest with men is in the bedroom, okay? And there's tons of women, whether they're dating a man, married to a man, where the intimacy isn't really at the level they would like, or isn't all that great, right? His performance may be below par, right? But because the woman likes him so much, he has a lot of other good qualities, and figures, I don't want to mess this up, so I'm just going to deal with it, and just act like everything's all good. But unfortunately, and I understand for the women, it's like, men can't handle that's one of those brutally honest things that, a lot of men struggle to handle or just flat out can't handle. But if I was talking to them, I'd be like, you want to it's better for her to tell you what the real deal is, so you guys, again, can find the correct path here, versus not knowing. And because if you don't know, what tends to happen is, even if this woman marries this man and she's been able to push through this whole time, there comes a point where she's tired of pushing through. It just ain't worth it to her. It was never that good. It ain't getting no better, okay? And now, unfortunately, you have a dynamic where if she tells him now, he is resistant to it, because in his mind, well, if it was good all these years, as he was led to believe, how was it all of a sudden bad, right? Or she doesn't say anything, she continues to not say anything, but she doesn't want to engage. And now he's frustrated because it's like, dang, I got married to this woman and we doing it less than we were doing it before. What's going on? And things just kind of fall apart from there. So what needs to happen is we need to be able to create safe spaces in our relationship where brutal honesty can be given. And people can receive it with the understanding that this is an opportunity to make things better, not to be offended, not to get upset, but to see, okay, is this a correctable thing? And can we move forward from this in a positive way? All right. So last but not least, remember I said there was one that could elicit necessarily a positive or a negative response. And that is the mindset that a woman can have that men respond differently to is the mindset that puts God first. All right. Now, if you've been watching enough of my videos, you knew God was going to come up some point in the video, right? But here's the thing. You know I'm always say to put God first. So I don't care how somebody responds to it. Like, that should be the priority. For those who are believers, that should be the priority. And I do believe that for a man who is a man of God, he's going to respect that, he's going to honor that, he's going to love that, right? But I felt like I needed to highlight the fact that for some women, you're not simply putting God first, you're weaponizing your spirituality, okay? And what I mean by that is I've come across a lot of women who discount men, write them off, and even the way that they go about engaging with them is in a negative way because it's like they're scrutinizing what they feel their walk with God should look like. Like to that woman, it's like, well, he ain't doing this and he ain't doing that. Well, he must not be serious. He must not love God. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, number one, nobody's perfect. You ain't perfect. He ain't perfect. Also understand, men and women can worship God very differently. Woman to woman, man to man can look different, but man to woman can also be very different. I always reference, there's a great book called Why Men Hate Going to Church. And long story short, one of the things it pointed out was how you tend to find that women love praise and worship, so the praise and worship section of the service, and men not so much, right? Men want to hear a word. They just want to receive that guidance, that direction or whatever. And I find that to be very true, right? And I think because praise and worship is very emotional, very vulnerable, and I think women love that. But men, very, very logical in the sense that they just want something concrete that says, okay, oh, this is what I learned today. This is what it is. Boom, boom. So that's just a small example of how people's relationship and the way they go about it can look very different. But what I've seen is, again, women not leaning on God to tell them if this man is someone they should be entertaining, but again, weaponizing their perception of what it should look like, right? And even, again, downplaying or dismissing that man's spiritual relationship with God. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, you got to be careful with that because, again, sometimes that also comes off in your energy. And the way to look at it as it comes off in this very judgmental energy, okay? And this very looking down on that person energy. And so their unwillingness to deal with you isn't because they're trying to reject God. They're rejecting how you want to implement it. So I'll give you one example. I've had tons of stories of women who would get with, whether it be a pastor or a man of God, and these women love God. They put God first. They're all about God. But they found themselves in relationships where the man would like weaponize scripture and constantly beating them over the head with scripture and using it in a way that was pretty manipulative, you know what I'm saying? Or judgmental in a negative way. And it's like, okay, if that woman runs from that, is she running from God? No. She's running from how he's using it, you know what I'm saying? And that's what's off-putting. And so some women are not mindful of that. So to get back to the original point, yes, men will respond positive. Men who are believers will respond positively to the woman who puts God first, but who's not weaponizing it and who understands that you got to let God guide you in how you deal with that man, with life, with all the things that you do so that you can get the best possible outcomes for yourself. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on Get Him Hooked on the First Date with these 12 effective tips. If you listen closely to this video and apply everything I'm about to tell you, I'm gonna have you driving men wild on your first, second, third, whatever date, all right?